Okay, so let me ask you something. When you think about India's massive infrastructure projects, the huge mines, the big defense initiatives, have you ever stopped to wonder who's supplying the bang? It's a fascinating question, and the answer leads us to a company that's an absolute giant in its field.
So today, we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to lay out a few clues, kind of like a little riddle, and you can try to guess the company we're talking about. Think you're up for it? Let's see if you can figure it out before I spill the beans.
All right, ready? Here's your first clue. We're not just talking about some small player here. This company is a true heavyweight, an absolute titan in its industry.
So get this. This company holds a whopping 24% of the entire Indian explosives market. Now just let that sink in for a second. That means that for nearly 1 out of every 4 major industrial blasts in the country, it's their product doing the work. That's not just big, that's market dominance, plain and simple. Okay, clue number 2 is all about scale. And I mean epic scale. This company runs the single largest cartridge explosives plant in the world. And it's all in one place, Nagpur. I mean, just try to imagine the sheer volume they're pumping out from just one facility. It's absolutely staggering. And don't for a second think this is just an Indian success story. Oh no. For hint number 3, you gotta look at the global picture. They've got manufacturing plants set up in 9 different countries, and their products, they're shipped out and distributed to a network that covers, wait for it, 90 countries. Yeah, 90. That's some serious global reach. All right, here's the last piece of the puzzle. This clue is all about ambition. The company has its sights set on a massive goal, a revenue target of 10,000 crore rupees by the 2026 financial year. So, you got a name yet? Think you've figured it out?
Well, if you've guessed Solar Industries India, you nailed it. That's the one. Solar Industries is the powerhouse that checks all the boxes, a true giant in the world of explosives.
Okay, so now that we know who we're talking about, let's dig into the numbers, because this is where things get really interesting. Their recent financial performance is what's got everyone talking, and believe me, it tells a pretty powerful story. So, check this out. In the second quarter of FY24, their sales jumped by a solid 21%. That's impressive on its own, right? But what's even better is that their operating profit margin also beefed up to 24%, mainly because some of their material costs went down. So what does that really mean? It means they're not just selling more stuff, they're making more money on every single thing they sell. That's the sweet spot. So, the big question is, what's fueling all this growth? Well, there are 2 main engines firing on all cylinders. First, you've got their international business, which grew by a healthy 21%. But the real rocket fuel, that's coming from their defense segment, which saw a mind-blowing 57% jump year on year. 57%. That's huge. And you can bet they're leaning into that defense business. It's a massive part of their whole strategy. Remember that 10,000 crore revenue target we talked about? Well, they're planning for a full 3,000 crore of that. That's nearly a third to come straight from defense deals. So yeah, it's a huge focus for them. And all this talk of explosive growth, pun intended, brings us right back to that global footprint we mentioned. It's not just a nice to have, it's a core pillar of their whole strategy. That 21% jump in international business, that's not an accident. It's the payoff from consciously pushing into those 90 countries. Think about it. It's super smart. It means they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, and it's a massive driver for hitting those big revenue numbers. Okay, but it can't all be sunshine and roses, right? For a truly balanced picture, we have to look at the other side of the coin. What are the potential speed bumps? What are the risks that come with this kind of rapid growth? Let's get into it. And this is where we see something that's definitely got analysts raising an eyebrow. Look at this comparison. Between FY23 and FY25, sales went up by a decent 9%. Okay, not bad. But their receivables, that's the money the customers owe them, shot up by a staggering 50%. You see that gap? That's a pretty big one. So what's the deal with that? Why does it matter? Well, when the amount of money people owe you grows way faster than the amount of stuff you're selling, it can be a warning sign. It might mean it's getting harder and harder to actually collect the cash for the sales you've already made. And that can put a real squeeze on your working capital. You know, the cash you need to pay your bills and keep the lights on day to day. So, to boil it all down, there are really 2 main risks to keep an eye on here. First, there's this cash collection issue we just talked about, that growing gap between sales and getting paid. And second, there's the classic problem of raw material prices. A key ingredient for them is ammonium nitrate. And when its price swings up and down, that can take a direct hit on their profits. It's something they constantly have to manage. So where does that leave us? It's a really fascinating picture, isn't it? On one hand, you have Solar Industries, an undisputed market leader with this incredible growth story, especially in defense. But on the other hand, you've got these growing pains. The big question hanging in the air is this: can they get a handle on these financial challenges to make sure their explosive growth isn't just a flash in the pan, but something sustainable for the long haul? That's the real story everyone's going to be watching.